small group, I'm going to go ahead and call our 2 o'clock strategic planning meeting to order. Can I get a motion on our minutes? Can I get a second?
Second.
And actually, because we don't have a quorum, we may need to approve those again at our next strategic planning meeting.
Yeah.
Because we aren't really officially allowed to vote, I suppose. I told Nicole, well, don't worry, we won't vote on anything. And
No.
we turned around and we
Very
voted on
good.
minutes.
Very good.
Okay, well, so our main objective for strategic planning today is to get an update on the Plan Chattanooga project. And they are going to be giving us a 10 to 15 minute presentation. I know Councilwoman Knoll has already had some time to learn about this. Dan, I'll just go ahead and hand the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, and letting me sit at the big table with the comfy chairs. I'm going to introduce our consultants today and a bunch of other folks. Jamie Green just sat down. I'll talk a little bit more about Jamie in a moment. I also want to unveil to you a gift to the council building here of this banner. It says Plan Chattanooga. We're going to keep it in this building until for at least the next year.
Okay.
It's got our website at the top. And so we kicked off this process a few months ago. And, as you know, we have two planning processes going on right now. Plan Chattanooga and Plan Hamilton. And you can go to planhamilton.org if you're interested in the county. We have a consultant team, which is an excellent group of professionals. We went through a big RFP process a number of months ago, and we selected this team, who I'll introduce in just a moment. We're still at the front end of this process. We are going to every neighborhood meeting this month, trying to make every one of them, and we'll continue to go to them, but the point of it was to help, I like to say, prime them for planning. We have never had a comprehensive plan like what we are doing now in this city. We've invested a lot of RPA reserve funds to get this underway. I like to say we have every piece of data you can imagine nowadays in our modern world. We know lots of good examples in Tennessee and other communities across the South and in the country where we can look at examples. So there's we have a rich resource to draw upon. And I think this is really a great time for us to be doing this planning process. Again, I kind of described today a comprehensive plan as being almost a management document for local governments. I was in Georgia for 2 decades, and Georgia has a law that requires a comprehensive plan for every local government every 10 years, a full update, and a partial update every 5 years. And it's been mandated since 1989. And so I got to go through, decades of this with every jurisdiction in Metro Atlanta. And some do it better than others. Some use their documents more than others. But this is absolutely intended to be a plan for the entire city to look at transportation issues, land use issues, housing issues. In the end, there will be things that the RPA and the city government will focus on more than others. But this is absolutely the time to create a vision and to work on that. So I'm going to stop there and turn it over to Jamie, and he can introduce the team.
Sure.
And I'll probably sit back here.
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Green. I run a consulting practice based out of Columbus, Ohio, called Planning Next. We work throughout the country. We're working right now in a couple places that maybe, in terms of population size, are comparable. We're doing the plan for Grand Rapids, Michigan, which has a big component of quality of life to their work. And you need that when you're up in Michigan to do that. We're also working in Mobile, Alabama. We've been doing that for about 5 years, where inclusiveness and diversity and implementation were really important. And I would tell you that in our work, though you've hired us to help with the process, we are keenly interested in what happens when the plan is done. Selfishly, our reputation is based on things getting done, and that has to happen when we're gone. So, as Dan alluded to, we have a pretty robust team. I have Michael Curtis with me today, who's the project manager for this. We also have with us Zach from MEND, who's, we've got a bunch of supporting cast members, but Zach is right with us in leading some of these areas that we're doing. Kimley Horn on the transportation, Integrant Partners on economics. So it's by definition, a comprehensive work. So I want to respect the time that you've given us. We hope this isn't the last time that we're here with you. So I just, in terms of I don't know what else I need to do. I advanced the slides, but they didn't.
Let's see, we have a button to push. Nope.
So this just gives you about ourselves, like we're less than 20 in terms of our practice, but really like to go to do things that we like to do, and we really appreciated what Dan and his team, how they wanted to approach the plan here in Chattanooga. So we pursued this, but this gives you some idea of where we've worked and how we've done this, the work. I won't go into that in great detail. We have a large web presence if you're interested. Zach, you just have like about a 60-second on Mend.
Yeah, we are a woman-owned business that focuses on equity, housing, community planning, open space, and natural resources, as well as landscape architecture.
Great, thanks. And so, this is a presentation, but I would encourage any of you have questions as we go along, please don't hesitate to say this. So, we're really clear that that this process, Dan talked about like the amount of data and technology that we have access to in these days. We believe that the best plans are those that understand, the trends and the conditions, but trends don't have to be your destiny. And so we want to understand the intuition that people who live here, work here, have about their community. And it's our job to sort of weave, in a thoughtful way, intuition and the research here. And so we want one growth strategy for the city, but we also are doing this in a really special way where we're actually zooming in on the 8 different geographies in the community. So, I don't want to be here to be talking down to anybody, but we just sort of think in terms of level setting. We should understand that this is a long-term citywide policy diagram. It's the broadest policy document that you could have. But by definition, it is the one opportunity you have to integrate land use, housing, conservation, infrastructure in one way, and that I think is really special. Implementation, we will have projects, policies, and programs in here that you can implement over time, and we will, to the extent that we can be detailed with you, we will actually identify like what it is, who it is, when it should be done. But even though it's a long-range plan, we think that there should be like, what do we do tomorrow? Like, what did we learn in this process that's still new and fresh? What we've found in a number of communities we work is that the plan is more than just this utility that exists, department to department, elected officials, appointed officials. It is also a marketing tool. What we understand from working with a lot of developers is they want predictability. So if you articulate what your vision is and how you want to grow and change, you might have a better chance of having people who want to collaborate with you instead of, maybe fuss with you about this work. So the area plans, we're for these 8 areas, and I assume you've seen some of this before, but you see the city and the county areas that are developed. We've sort of dividing this up with Zach and his team, but integrating all of it at the same time. Being really clear about this is serving as a general policy guide. There'll be other things you need to do to implement it, like updating zoning, or your capital improvements will be there. And being clear with people about what the plan does and doesn't do. We think managing expectations in these is really challenging because at one hand we want people to think and dream big, but there are realities like fiscal constraints. So that is the other part of our planning work, is understanding, fiscally, are we making decisions that will make you healthier in the future or not? This is an example of one of the areas that we're looking at, Area 3, and some of the work that we've, the analysis about centers and corridors. And one of the really, I think, important parts of the work that is probably more significantly in the last 10 years, but going a little bit further, is actually articulating the vision for quality of place. Not just doing it by use, not just doing it by a two-dimensional map that paints a green, but actually having people understand if these policies are implemented, what places might look like three-dimensionally. And that may seem like really obvious to some of you sitting here today, but that's not how it is always done. So our understanding of Chattanooga as a quality place is really important, and this plan will be really special in how it does that. We also know that you've done some good work, and here's some examples of it, but there are there are ways that you can organize place that make more sense physically, makes more sense in terms of emotional attachment, and we really, want to help with that. The process, as I mentioned, it's comprehensive. Like these are the core topics, but we also believe in what this discovery might yield, and there may be, value in addressing some things that don't come up. As an example, we've worked in communities, where there's been major institutions, and there have been actual specific recommendations about those, particularly like in major college towns. You have done a lot of work here, a lot of good work, and so what we're trying to do with staff is gather all that up and make sense of it and have that as a foundation going forward, but not ignoring that, but also not just accepting that that is what it is. But so those are just a few examples, which I assume that you're familiar with.
Will you go back to that slide?
You bet.
I want to see where you're integrating recent studies, real estate market. So the housing study, is that from our affordable housing, our chief housing officer?
Yes.
Okay. And our POP, okay, got it, thank you.
And I know that there are others, just, this is just a few of the recent ones.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how we see the process, flowing. We started a couple months ago with sort of just getting organized and preparing, but we're, the dark blue and the light blue are on a parallel path, the engagement and the research and analysis. The large circles are indications of where we will do some very focused engagement, with the community. First, sort of, in a generative way about what's important, what people are experiencing. We don't believe in starting these processes off by showing people what we think the solutions are and trying to get them to love them. We start with a blank piece of paper and this is what we understand is going on. We then will make our way in from that into a round where we're actually thinking about choices and the consequences of choices that you have to make in a community. Because we don't think it's fair just to make choices. We have to understand consequences, both the intended and anticipated as best we can. And then this last part in the engagement is really about refining what we've heard. And if you can read up there under plan development, that's some of the work that we're doing around the vision, goals, and plan structure, place type maps, area, recommendations, and drafting it, and then getting to the adoption phase, which right now, it's a little less than a year from now, but we don't know how long that process will take. But this is basically our map, and if you're interested in any of this material, we can certainly provide it. I mentioned, the engagement part because that's really important to us, both in terms of building trust. I don't know about your community, but there's a lot of communities that have experienced planning efforts where maybe they weren't treated as well as they would have liked to have been treated, and so. We've got to do this in a way that people can build some trust in what we're doing and do that in multiple ways. We would love for people to come to a large gathering, meet people that didn't know each other, but that had in common their care for the future of this place. But it is hard. It's always been hard, but the pandemic is still going on, I guess. Yeah. But it's been really hard since then to get people, to do that. So, but we will offer the chance. Because in our experience, one of the residual benefits of doing a plan the way that we like to do it is it not only produces the plan, but it helps build community. People come together for a common purpose to solve some issues and realize the full potential of the community, but also individual potential. And so we're gonna offer opportunities where people come together, but we're also committed to going to where they are, especially the hard to reach. And I will tell you that we do exit questionnaires after all of our public meetings, been doing that for 25 years, and we know that the reason that people come to a process like we're going to be facilitating here is because somebody they know, recognize, or trust asked them to do it. Not because they read a legal notice, not because they saw a flyer in a coffee shop. It's because somebody asked them.
How will you all intentionally engage people ages 25 to 45?
25 to 45, right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go about our engagement for an all-in strategy. But you're calling that group out because that's a group that can be hard to attract because they're young in their professional life, they've got young family, they're hard to get.
And they're going to be living in the city that we're planning.
Absolutely,
They
right,
haven't already lived
right.
in the city
But-
that it is as it is.
That's right. So we're gonna invite them to our open call things, but we're also, when we prove what you're suggesting is that they won't participate in the significant numbers we want, we'll go to where they are. I know this will sound like hardship duty, but in Mobile, we identified a series of pubs where
I was thinking
the
the same thing.
the 25 to 40-year-olds went, and we, volunteered to go and meet them where they were in those locations. I don't know if you call them PTOs or PTAs in Chattanooga, but the parent-teacher organizations, we find leaders in those organizations and go, to go to those meetings. If you tell us that there are certain employers that have a large demographic in that age span, we will work with the employers to find ways to do that. Now, you probably quickly figuring out that what I'm suggesting is really intensive in terms of effort. We will prepare what we call a meeting in a box, which will have the same basic questions that you could find online, you could find in the in-person meetings, but they can be taken out to any neighborhood group or employer to actually ask those very same questions. But we're counting on the steering committee, which we had our first meeting with just an hour ago, to help us identify the most impactful places to go get the hard-to-reach folks.
Okay, great, thank you.
I gotta just add, we're gonna go after every opportunity. I've been hitting lots of media from Nougat today to, I did a radio show last Saturday morning, 93.5, I think. So we're gonna do every possible way of engagement. We're gonna, have, obviously, we have a website with a great video. Nobody's seen the video. You can watch my video. Anyways, a survey, we've already got 500, I think, folks that have taken the survey. But I like to say, the thing I really like about working here is that we're not under a time crunch. We're gonna do it right. And that's gonna, you saw we're gonna have 3 points of public involvement, stakeholder involvement. We're gonna take our time, and I trust Jamie and the team, and we're gonna do a really good job. I mean, we're gonna involve all the city administration, other departments, as many folks as we can get at the table.
Is that 500?
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, piggyback on your age group, let's go with ages 55 and up.
Yeah,
So I hope, judging by our 7-hour planning commission meeting yesterday, you
Yeah.
are utilizing our planning commission.
they will be. We want
Because you missed an opportunity yesterday for about 200 concerned citizens
that
in the
right?
county and the city
Yeah.
of 7 hours of debate in opposition to zoning cases.
Yeah.
I highly recommend you utilize planning commission.
Yeah.
A lot of that age group and demographic were probably our older residents
Yeah.
that aren't tech savvy. So that's why I wanted to bring up the age 55 and up.
Right,
And although we are planning for the
Yeah.
future, they still live here,
Yeah.
they still have a voice.
yeah,
And you'll hear a very consistent theme, and we could talk about a lot of this offline. Because I can
Yeah.
lend probably a pretty good chunk of information on what we're hearing.
right.
But do not discount, please, the planning commission as a resource to go and find folks. We
Yes.
don't have a lot of Janices
Yeah,
who are following us and tracking us, thankfully.
I gave you 2 hours.
Yes, yes, ma'am. It was a tough meeting. It was a
Yeah.
tough meeting. But I think if you really dive into planning
Right.
commission, you're gonna be able to not just watch it, but come and see.
Yeah.
You'll find a lot of folks there, because there's nothing that draws people out to be concerned until you try to rezone
Right.
property next door to them.
yeah.
I promise you.
Yeah.
Amen?
Amen.
All right.
No, I
Let it be
appreciate.
said.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. No, I appreciate that, and we want to learn from planning commission and what that experience is, and we want the planning commissioners also to be helpful in this process as well. We do, when I mentioned we do exit questionnaires, we also ask for demographic information. And we usually get 70+ of the participants who will actually give us information on themselves, and then we compare that to what the census says exists in your community. So we'll know whether we've got the 55 and older group proportionate or the 25 to 40, and if we don't, then that will trigger us to go do that other work. But I appreciate your comment on the planning commission. We'll definitely do that. So I just wanted to mention that in terms of the outreach strategy, I've already said the word of mouth is really, we think that's just fundamental. And so you will be getting, talking points about Plan Chattanooga, kind of the key themes, so that when you find yourself with people that you know and you want them to know that this really, unique opportunity, like this doesn't happen, like Dan mentioned in Georgia or even South Carolina, they're pretty progressive about requiring plan. You don't have that here, right? So this is a really special opportunity to address any and all in an integrated way, and we're committed to do that. The website there, we'd love for you to go there if you haven't already, but to encourage others to go there. So this has not been out that long. And Michael, how many surveys do we have so far?
632.
That's good.
That's really good, yeah.
That's good.
And there's a map exercise here, but people are actually telling us about specific places we should be aware of. And so how many specific?
At least 950.
Yeah.
So we did get it out to the public schools newsletter last week, that probably helped, Nougat Today.
Yeah.
There's a number, and everybody's, I got a lot of media folks are really genuinely interested. I had to get them off the phone talking about this, some of them.
Right. So that's a very quick, hopefully not too long, but quick sort of like what we're up to, how we think about this work in an integrated way. This is not like transactional for us. It's like this is in it with people, not just the data.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I'll have more later, but I really appreciate what you all are doing. I think this is great. This is, I think, taking your time, because the number one issue that we hear at Planning Commission and district meetings is we aren't planning for growth. I mean, that's number one. Number two is the condition of our roads that lead to these developments. But we are not, that's what we hear from the public, and I think that we owe them a plan.
Yeah.
I
Right.
really do, and we need to follow it.
Yeah.
That way we can say we are planning for growth.
Right.
It seems to be our Achilles heel sometimes. So anyway, thank you.
No, thank you.
Do we have anything to add?
No, other than I'm excited.
Good.
To finally see that something is actually going to happen.
All right, thank you.
It's been a long time.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I would just put a fine point on the fact that we have put a great deal of thought into our parks and outdoors plan, and we'll soon be finishing up our housing action
Oh,
plan.
great.
Housing and parks are two major objectives of the Kelly administration, and that are things that are important to this council as well. And also, 2 weeks ago, at our last strategic planning, we had a conversation about an equity study that we are considering sponsoring as a council. And a study you all may want to consider.
Yes.
It was put out by our Urban League. It's the State of Black Chattanooga 2022 that I think could be helpful to you as well, might be worth pulling.
No, we would love to see that. As I mentioned, the steering committee earlier, the issue of equity and diversity came up, and this is a fundamental place to have policies. And if that's a value, which I believe it is in Chattanooga, then this plan has to weave that in. It's not a separate thing, it's integrated in all that we're doing. So thank you for calling that out.
I can actually say it's already been reviewed and we're working on it.
That's great news. Thank you.
If I might add, another component that I bring up constantly is the educational piece for the public. You know, we can create plans and we can sit around as a body and have all the minds thinking and come up with great ideas. But what gets lost, and I see it every week, I promise, is the thinking or the conversation as it relates to it. People out living in our areas.
Right.
They look at me, they look at Councilwoman Hill and Councilwoman Noel, and they go, I didn't know about this. What are you talking about? And these are people who follow the news, they follow the paper. We have got to be intentional in education, because it is very difficult for us at times when we're up at, and we know what, for example, a zoning law is. We know what by rights mean in development. And then there's 25 neighbors who don't care.
Right.
They're not. They don't know we've had a plan, or the area, what's the Area 11 plan? You cited that one in particular. And that one we worked on for a long time, and we did a great job. We had a lot of participants, Karen, in that, during COVID. I mean, that's the area I represent.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of engagement.
Right.
Still, we're missing education.
Yeah.
on the conversation. So I would just really stress that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your work.
Oh, thank you so much.
Appreciate your participation. All right, so moving on to other business, we have quite a lot of education sessions coming up in the next several weeks. We are gonna be doing quite a lot of education for the fall, Councilman Ledford.
I like education.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go over those point by point. And you all know what's on our agendas. We'll be gathering again at 3:30. The board appointments, I think we all just, several of us, myself included, need to continue work to find animal control board members. But then there are other boards as well that need some seats, so if you see your number, take a look. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about while we're together for strategic planning?
I don't have anything, Madam Chair.
Neither do I.
All right, well then I will adjourn us and we'll see each other at 3:30. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.